Hello out there. You're listening to the Bleeding Metal podcast. My name is Pia. My pronouns are she, her. And today I'm here with my co-host.
Hello, my name is Suzana. My pronouns are also she, her.
And we are on a little experiment, I would say. Because we thought we could also talk about metal-related movies on this podcast and recommend some of these movies to you because, there are so many movies out there and maybe you don't know the ones that we are recommending. We will do this from time to time now, I think. And for today, we prepared two movies. One is the movie Metalhead from Iceland, and the second one is Metal Lords. I think it's from the US,
yes.
Right? And maybe you can tell us in the comments for this episode if you have watched the movies, if you liked them, and if you didn't know them before, it would be cool to know that you maybe liked our recommendations.
Yes.
We thought about starting with Metalhead because that movie is a bit sad, but in the end comes out really not funny, but you're going out a bit lighthearted as well. That was it, at least for me. But this episode will contain spoilers. So if you want to hear our opinion about the movie later on, then you should maybe stop listening now, watch the movie Metalhead from Iceland.
And then come back and tell us.
Right. So the movie is from 2013. The original title is Malmhaus. And it's a drama written and directed by Ragnar Bragason. What I really like about the story is that the main character is girl, or maybe later on she's a woman, but in the beginning it's a girl. And the moment where her life turns is the death of her brother. And she is giving herself also guilt for his death because he was working on the farm. The family has a farm. They're living in a village in Iceland. Her brother has really long hair, and she came home from, I don't know where she came from, but she went there to the field where he was doing the soil work, and she waved at him because she was happy to see him, and he waved back at her. And I think it was the moment when he turned around that his hair came into the machine that he was working with and pulled him into the machine. His hair was left in the machine, and he died then from that accident. That's the first scene, I think, and that's the starting point. And you can't really tell that it was her fault because, maybe if she hadn't waved at him, that wouldn't have happened. It also wouldn't have happened if he had short hair. It wouldn't have happened if he hadn't to work on the farm. There are so many what ifs, but in the end, she also feels guilty for that, of course. And also very sad because they also had a very good relationship. And for dealing with her grief, she goes to his room and also listens to his music, and that comforts her. And there she sees all the pictures on the wall of the metal bands that her brother liked, and she adapts the music and I think also his clothes, his style and everything. And one day she also starts playing the guitar, and that helps her more or less to deal with everything. And she also starts making music. And when she does that, she learns the other instruments too. I think she also does the vocals and everything, the screams, and releases, quote unquote, an album. I think she has it on tape, and that tape is gone, I don't know where, through tape trading. I think the whole plot is set in the 80s, I would say.
It starts in the 80s anyway, when she's a kid. And
yes,
and it's then the 90s, but it's a tape, and she has to send it outside because she lives in an isolated village. To be produced. But,
and then some people, I think 3 guys from
Norway,
Norway
yeah.
come to the village, yes. And they say they are looking for the person who released this music because it's the sickest stuff that they've ever heard. And they want to know the person behind that. And then they kind of team up with her and also play. It's a bit weird setting. They play in the town hall or in the village hall in front of the people of the village. And of course, they don't really like the music, but they still stay there anyways. And during the plot, she also burns down a church.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's more or less the plot. And what I think is so beautiful about the movie is, on the one hand, how the people around her treat her,
Yeah.
because when she's burning the church, nobody gives her any guilt, or I think everybody knows that it was her, but nobody talks about it. They just rebuild the church, and the priest in the church even tries to help her with her grief.
Yeah, I think everyone around her kind of understands that she's acting out of
Yes.
pain. So
Yes.
they're supportive of the fact that she's hurting. She's not doing what she's doing because she's a bad person, but she is in pain. She's suffering. So I think it's one of
Right.
the parts of the movie that I like the most as well. The understanding.
Yes. Also, when they were having this concert in front of the people of the village, nobody leaves, I think. They are all watching, even though it's really heavy music. And then there is the song, I think they end the set with that, where she's playing the guitar and she's singing,
Yeah.
and there she's not screaming, she's singing with her own, or with her clean vocals. And that's a really, really beautiful song. I also looked that one up, and you can find it on YouTube. I don't think that there is a version that you can find in the streaming services, but I really, really love the song. It's a really touching one. It's more in the direction of doom metal, I would say. So it reminded me a bit of Draconian, also
That's true,
because of
that's true. Yeah.
her voice.
And both the versions are cool. The growling and then the clean vocals. It's both versions are really beautiful. And the last one, yeah, especially with the setting of the movie and what it means, like why she changes the way she sings. It's beautiful in the end of the movie. Yeah.
And the closing scene is that I don't know if she returns home from the gig, but she is back home with her parents and back in the room of her brother. And I think they didn't really change anything about the room.
Yeah.
And then they are listening to his death metal music and they are having a party. So that kind of shows that she's finally gotten over her grief, or that she's fine with the situation now and she can go on living her own life. But the whole way that this movie tells the story, now that I told the story, I think it's not a complicated plot and anything. But what I really like is that how they showed the grief that she feels, and also the comfort that people around her try to give her, because she also has childhood friends. They are not giving up on her. And of course, her parents don't give up on her. And there's this whole, trying to help her with what she's going through. But in the end, they're all unable to help her. But the music is what helps her in the end. And also, being on stage, finally doing what her brother would, of course, loved to do.
Or love seeing her during that as well.
Yes.
He would have been supportive of her. Yeah. I love that the movie, like you said, the plot itself is not very complicated because it's the story of a young woman grieving her brother, and the conflicts also with her family because everyone is grieving and nobody knows what to do. So they're all trying to deal with their pain differently, and they don't know how to help each other. Sometimes they hurt each other because they are hurting themselves. So pretty much the whole story happens in her heart. It happens inside of her, because it's also, maybe for me, I thought it was a little bit of her trying to find who she is as well, because she was a little kid and her brother was the older brother that she looked up to. He was kind of a role model to her, and she kind of loses that. So it's like, who am I even now that I don't have this guidance, this person who I admire, who I can maybe imitate? And she starts the movie kind of just doing what her brother would do. Like you said, she goes into his room, listens to the music that he likes. I think she kind of deals with the pain, trying to be him or be who she thought he would be. she tries to kind of brings his life a little bit to her life because he's not there anymore. Also because of her guilt, probably. And she does a lot of wrong things, I think, during the movie because she's just like a rebel teenager fighting with her parents, not being such a good friend anymore to her friends because, again, she's just going through all the pain. But then she's also trying to find herself, like, who am I now that I lost my role model? And of course, she can't just live her brother's life and imitate and mimic everything that he was doing. So even when she starts listening to metal, is a little bit of something that my brother would do. But then throughout the movie, she discovers what kind of music she likes and the kind of music that she makes herself. I think it's beautiful at the end of the movie that she changes her song a little bit because then she kind of adapts. I think she adapts her song to because she's playing to the village people there and her family. So she wants to express herself, but she also doesn't want to. She doesn't want to fight anymore. She doesn't want to burn churches, and she wants to be part of the community. I think she noticed that everyone understands her pain and everyone was so supportive and no one was giving her a hard time anymore. So she finds a way. So I think it's beautiful at the end of the movie that she finds herself. It's like, I know who my brother was. I want to honor him. The kind of celebration that they have at the end of the movie with her parents. I cried. I want to know if our listeners also cried at the end of the movie. I'm not a big crier, but I did cry at the end of the movie, both with her song and then the celebration with her parents. I thought that was so cute.
That's something that's really important, what you just said, because she also kind of had to step in the footsteps of her brother because he also had to do the work that he was doing before because he was obviously missing on the farm as well.
Yeah, right. And I think it's like a family work. So, right. And
yes.
And I think it's like a poor family or a family that really needs to work and can't stop working to just pay the bills. So she really has to step into what her brother was doing. So she kind of loses really her identity and her role in the family is transformed because now one person is not there anymore.
Yeah, she kind of had to become her idol.
Yeah. That's a nice way of saying it. Yeah. Yeah. One trivia that I went to look up because when I was watching the movie, I thought the brother, the guy who plays the brother, looked really familiar. And I was like, oh, this is the guy from Vintage Caravan. And I paused and I Wikipedia. And it is. The brother is played by a guitar and singer of Vintage Caravan, Oscar August's son. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Another thing that I found interesting is that some years later, I read this book called Desumanização. I don't think there is an English version, but it means dehumanization. And the book was written by Portuguese author Walter Ugumai. And the book is so similar to the movie. I thought it was so interesting. I was even looking up, like, who copied who? But it's not really a copy because the book is not about a metalhead. So the music element is not in the book at all. But both the book and the movie takes place in Iceland. Even the name of the character is similar. And in the book, the main character is also dealing with a loss. She also loses a sibling. In her case, it's the sister. And because they are twin sisters in the movie, in the book, she loses even more of this sense of identity because it's like her other half. So the book is also set place in Iceland. Is also an isolated place. I think in the book, the fact that they are all alone in this big landscape and away from everyone, it adds to the isolation and the loneliness. And the book is also about this character trying to find her and what makes her human and a person again. I noticed that the movie is older than the book. So I now have this fantasy that the author is secretly a metalhead that we don't know about, but maybe he is. And he watched the movie and he cried at the end like I did. And then he wrote the book.
So I would absolutely recommend, if you are a metal lover, what you probably are when you're listening to this podcast. And also when you are going through grief yourself, it can also be healing, I guess, because, as I said, they are dealing with the topic really in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
And to lighten up the mood a bit, now we talk about
Metal Lords.
I always forgot the title.
It's Metal
Lords. Yes.
Because there is this other movie called Lots of Chaos.
Lots of Chaos.
Yeah. Okay. So
about the Norwegian black metal scene. I don't know if it's a documentary, but yeah, I always mistaken the two of them.
But Metal Lords it was released in 2022. I think it's a lot lighter movie than Norwegian black metal. It was produced by Tom Morello. It's available on Netflix. And I do have the description for the movie on Netflix because I thought it was very funny. The description on Netflix says, the movie is about two kids that start a metal band in a high school where exactly only two kids care about metal. So they are the only two kids in this big school who cares about metal, and they start a heavy metal band because they have this battle of the bands in the school coming up, and they want to enroll themselves and hopefully win, of course. I think the description is actually kind of generous because if you watch the movie, it's actually one kid who cares about metal a lot. He is very passionate about metal and all the bands, and he takes it very seriously, and it's 90% of his personality. He loves it with a passion. And then he kind of convinces his friends to love metal as well. And then, the two kids kind of try to find other band members to get the band together and play on the Battle of the Bands in the high school. And I think at some point what they find is this girl who plays on the marching band, but she plays the drum in the marching band. And she doesn't necessarily know anything about rock or metal, but she has a very metal attitude. She's very angry and defiant and speaks her mind. And I think that's what makes the other kids like her at first. And she's like, oh, she has the good attitude. And the whole movie is really just them. It's kind of a coming of age because it's their process of becoming more mature and learning how to relate with one another because, of course, they have their own inner conflicts. But it's also the fact that they are the outcasts in their high school. And I guess it's a mandatory thing in the US that you have to have the outcasts and the bullies. I don't know if it happens in reality, hopefully not. But in every movie, apparently, if you're set a movie in American high school, you have to have the bullies. So, of course, this one have the bullies as well. So it's, just those kids trying to make a name for themselves and show the world who they are in spite of all the opposition that they face. Their families don't like the idea of them playing metal either. The bullies, and they know, of course, and we watching the movie, we already also know that, of course, they're going to be the weird band playing the high school talent show. But I thought it was very funny. The movie is so cute and lighthearted and warming. You don't really, at least it wasn't the case for me, that you don't really need the characters to win at the end. Like playing the Battle of the Bands is just a plot point. It doesn't even matter.
They struggle so much with putting the band together that they achieved what they wanted.
And I felt like it was so much about them being who they are. Like this feels very important to me. The main character is so passionate. I love his enthusiasm. And you just want to see them actually play and make their dream come true. So it's so much about them being who they are, being true to themselves, being able to express themselves and figure things out within the group because, of course, they have their own teenager little conflicts there. So it's just all about them growing up and maturing and being able to be who they are. That really winning is like the external validation that doesn't even really matter at the end of the movie. Honestly, I can't even remember if they win or not at the end. I don't even remember. It's really not relevant because the whole thing is just about them finally, being able to be who they are on stage and be true to themselves. Like, I'm going to leave out this thing that I'm very passionate about. There is this one scene that actually two scenes that I really like because at some point, the main character, he has long hair, but he's attacked by the bullies and they want to shave his hair, but they can't. So they just shave like the side of his head. But I was in pain. I was truly in pain watching it.
Yes.
Like insane.
He then later looked like Skrillex because, yeah.
So much like Skrillex. Yeah. But he managed to make, I think that it's so cool. Like of course, it's kind of an obvious and silly metaphor, but it's really true to like, you are just this good-hearted kid trying to do your own thing. And then the world tries to knock you down. And maybe they get a little victory because they do shave a little bit of his head, but then he just style his hair differently and is super rock and roll and cool. So he kind of like, no, you didn't knock me down. I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to keep going. I loved it. And another part that I loved is, it was very silly, but they are driving somewhere because I think you can drive when you're 16 in the US, right? So they are driving somewhere and they drive past the bullies walking on the sidewalk somewhere. And the main character says like, stop the car because I'm going to go confront the bullies. And his friend's like, no, come on, don't do that. We are just the two of us. They have a group. And of course the bullies is like twice their size and everything. And he runs to the bullies. He goes there. He says what he wants to say. And then he just pokes one in the nose. He doesn't fight. It's not him. It's just not him. He's not a bully. He doesn't want to fight. He's just a metalhead who wants to love music and be happy about it. So I love it. He just like pokes one in the nose and runs. And I thought that was super cute and super funny. And then he escapes the beating this time. So it's cool. But I love it because it's very true to the character that his whole thing is not winning the world over and proving his value. He's just so passionate about music that it really doesn't matter. Like if you don't like it, it's really cool. I feel like the character is who I wanted to be in high school. So I was watching the movie and feeling like, oh, I wish I was their older sister or maybe their auntie, that I could go in the movie and just give them a hug and go like, you go, kid. You're doing okay. You can do it. It's fine. Because I didn't have that as a kid. And also I wanted to be like him as a kid, because I can be the person who is super passionate and enthusiastic about things. I am definitely that. But as a kid, I definitely didn't know how to stand up for myself. It's something that I'm still learning. Maybe one day I'll get there. But I think I didn't have the courage really to just be like, this is me and this is it. As a kid, I was still kind of insecure and trying to find a validation. And I think I would step back at the first sign of, this is not cool. I don't like it. Your shirt is weird. Then I would never wear the band t-shirt ever again, But the kid doesn't do that in the movie. He's like, I don't care. So he's super defiant and is like, I love this and this is super important to me. I don't care. So I really loved it. I was like, yeah, my teenager me is very happy watching this movie because, yeah, you go. I thought that was really cool.
I have to say that I'm a bit less enthusiastic about the movie because I think it's really cliche.
It is.
So I've watched that 1,000 times. But I also like this coming of age movies because they are very often really cute, like you said.
Yeah.
You can also always find some version of yourself within the characters. If I compare that as well to Metalhead, then you could also have another music setting for that. So it could have also been a jazz band. He could have been enthusiastic about jazz. So you didn't necessarily need the metal music. Whereas I think in Metalhead, it's important that it's metal because the music is so emotional.
Yes.
And depending on how your character is, metal can really help you through hard times, like it did with Hera in the Metalhead movie. And it can do that in different ways than other styles of music, because most styles of music are happy.
Yeah.
And metal is not. Metal doesn't say, well, everything is fine and you're going to be good. Metal is like, everything goes down to hell right now and the world is a shitty place and I understand you and I'm here for you.
Yes, yes.
I think it was important for the Metalhead movie to have this music but it was not important for Metal Lords that it was the metal music. I think they could have used any other style of non-popular music.
That's true, because I think metal music and Metal Lords is just kind of cliche, like you said. I think it's the first kind of music that you go to when you want to have like the rebel teenager that listen to loud music. I even thought that the part that I thought was very cliche about Metal Lords were the bands that they mentioned in the movie, because they only really mentioned the 80s big band classics. And I even thought that was kind of unrealistic. Like, why would a 14-year-old would be listening to such old bands? It could be true, but I don't know. But also I felt like that using very cliche, very big bands that everybody at least ever heard of. You don't need to be a metalhead to know Judas Priest or Metallica to go to a very cliche name. So I think the Metal Lords movie kind of makes metal easy for other audiences to understand. So like you're saying, it could be any kind of music. And if I watch any other movie about, like Whiplash, that was about the jazz drummer, and I don't need to understand anything about jazz to understand the struggle of the character and the growth and the plot of the movie. So I think what they did with Metalhead was the same, not Metalhead, Metal Lords, was the same thing. Like, we will give you a very cliche version of what metal is so that you just understand the plot and what the character is going through. Whereas with Metalhead, yes, I think it goes deeper into what metal really is. And I guess maybe people that listen to metal will get that connection quicker. I even noticed that the thumbnail for Metalhead on streaming platform is the main character with her face
with corpse
paint. Yes. And if you're a metalhead, you know what that is. If you're not, maybe you don't even know what that means. But the movie is not even about that. I think she wears corpse paint like for 5 seconds in the movie. Right? Because it, like you said, it's not really about the music itself, but it's about the grief, the pain, and how metal music can help you deal with all of that. So Metal Lords is about the defiant rebel side of metal. That could be the same with other kind of music, like rock, for example. But Metalhead is really about the deeper, kind of even sadder and more nuanced side of metal, that you can also, of course, have deeper meanings and more serious music. Not just metal is not just about being loud and rebellious, right? It's also about feeling things deeply and dealing with big pangs and big feelings. So yeah, I like that comparison.
Yeah, and I have to say that Metal Lords really lost me with I think she plays cello. I don't know if it's just the three of them, but they have this female character who in the end steps out of the band even, I think, and they are not sure if she's going to come to the concert that they are playing. And then suddenly she appears there. And the whole time she just wears normal clothes. And for that concert, she dresses up in a very gothic style. And I was like, okay, that's too much cliche now for me that she chooses the gothic style. Because when you're a female metalhead, of course, you have to look gothic. And also I was like, well, stay true to yourself. When the movie is about staying true to yourself, then she should have been there with the stuff that she's wearing usually and not changing herself for the band.
Yeah,
so I found that a bit sad in the end.
Yeah. It's also that it's the three of them in the band, but she gets the least character development. Were you a cool, defiant kid in high school? Because I was not. Maybe that's why you didn't care so much about the movie. You were cooler than me.
I wasn't part of the cool kids, but let me say it like this. If someone would have told me I don't like your shirt, I would have been like, I don't care.
I wanted to be this girl.
And wear it again.
I was not this girl. I was like, oh, am I doing it wrong? I was very worried about doing the right thing.
So that's also a good recommendation for people who feel the same like you, to watch this movie, find themselves in the main character or what they would have wanted to be. And but it's still a movie. I don't think I wasted my time watching it. It was fun to watch. I would not necessarily watch it again, but it was okay for me. So let us know out there what you think, if you watched both movies or only one, or did you like the movies or one of the movie? And write us in the comments.
You could tell us also if you were a team Pia or team Suzana as a teenager. Were you the rebel, defiant teenager who doesn't care what people think about you? Or were you the coward who were like, oh no, I have to be the good girl?
Maybe I would have adopted you as a friend if I found out that you liked metal. So we are here for you if you are that person now.
Yes. I want to be the older sister or the auntie that goes like, oh, you're okay, kid. I needed that as a kid, so I can do that now.
Yes. And what you can also do in the comments is write us recommendations or movies that we should watch and that we could talk about in this podcast.
Yes, please.
That would be cool. Perfect. Then thank you for discussing the movies with me, Suzana.
Yeah.
And thank you out there for listening. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.